I'm going to go through every AFL team and predict where they will finish in 5 years' time. Now, obviously, we've got it in a tier list from top 4, creeping into finals, which is 5 to 8, just missing out on the 8, which is probably sort of 9 to 12, 13. Irrelevant finish, that's sort of mid-table, 13 to sort of 15, like no one really cares about those teams. And then wooden spoon lickers, who's going to fight for the wooden spoon? Doing this in alphabetical order, we've got the Adelaide Crows first. I think they have an abundance of young talent. Rankin, I think they're going to get xoxo, who was playing for Gold Coast now, but if we all assume he's going to play in Adelaide in a couple of years. Jordan Dawson's awesome. I think they can pick up someone who can replace Tex Walker. I'm putting them in top 4. Their rebuild has shown to be successful thus far, but I will say not all rebuilding teams are going to be in the top. Some of them I will put down below. Brisbane, I think Brisbane are wooden spoon lickers in 5 years' time. Actually, you know what? That's a bit harsh. I'm going to put them irrelevant finish. I know they have Will Ashcroft. Cameron will still be pretty good in that time. Hugh McCluggage might still be going around, but you know, they're good players. Danaher, Lockie Neal won't be there. I know Zach Bailey's young, but I just feel like the window's going to close, and once it closes, people will start to leave. But I'm not putting them quite wooden spoon lickers because they do have some decent young talent. Carlton, this is the hardest one, right? Because they've bought players for the now. The signings, Mitch McGovern, Zach Williams, Jack Martin, George Hewitt, Adam Sard, all of those players have been bought to win for the now, and those players will not be that good in 5 years. They're young talent, like they're just the history in the draft. Paddy Dow, Lockie O'Brien, top 10 picks have turned into nothing. Paddy Cripps will be old and probably nearly finished by then. I think their saving grace is Wiedering will still be decent. Sam Walsh will be in his prime, but I'm just not convinced with it. I'm going to put them in. They just miss out on the 8. I'm sorry, Carlton fans. No rebuild will fix you. Collingwood, I'm putting Collingwood in, creeping into the finals. The reason being they're a big club and they're a successfully and a well-run club, so I don't think I see them anytime soon dropping out of the finals just because of the way they're run. They're polar opposites to Carlton. Their higher ups are really good at their job, but I won't put them in top 4. Actually, you know what? Dacos, young talent, I'm putting them top 4. I think they're going to make it. I just back the higher ups, and for a club to be good for a long period of time, you've got to have good higher ups. Essendon, this is a bit like Carlton. They're so hard to predict, Essendon. They've got good young talent, and their list is pretty young, so I think they're going to be creeping into finals in 5 years' time. It's pretty hard to predict. Obviously, this is impossible to predict. The main reason is because we've seen players like Nick Dacos, Sam Walsh have amazing impact in their first, second, third years. So draft picks, and look, some of these teams might not even exist in 5 years. I'm looking at you, Gold Coast. But Essendon creeping into finals, I think that's fair given their talent, but just history says that they're not going to sneak into top 4. So I'm going to respect the history. Fremantle, I am going to go bold and say wooden spoon lickers. I think Sean Darcy will end up in Geelong. He's a Victorian man, so I think he'll leave Fremantle. Sarong is also a Victorian. I think he'll leave. And I think Brayshaw, will he stay, become a legend like Fife? Maybe, but I just don't see that club doing much. I think they have all right young talent. They have some, obviously, the names I just mentioned at stars, but otherwise not too much. And it's probably more a reflection of the club, the size of the club. But I feel like, will they challenge in 5 years? No. Geelong, also wooden spoon lickers. I hate to say it, old team. They're going to go through a massive rebuild in the next year or two, and I think they'll be licking the wooden spoon still. Gold Coast, wooden spoon lickers as well, only because of the club they are. They're always going to lose players. I will never see Gold Coast do anything, and I think in 5 years they'll be licking the wooden spoon as per usual. Nothing different. The GWS Giants, I think the Giants will be top 4 in 5 years. I think their young players right now will be in their prime in 5 years, and I think they have Adam Kingsley as a great coach. It might be a bit ambitious, but you know what? I back GWS. Hawthorn's an interesting one. You know what? I still don't think they have great young talent. They have a lot of young players. I think they'll be creeping into the finals in 5 years' time, but I'm just not sold on some of those young players at the moment. I think they have some great players, but no one sort of groundbreaking. Melbourne, in 5 years' time, Oliver Petrarca will be getting on, Gawn will be old, Grundy will be old, Stephen May will be old. I think they're going to be out the window, and I think they'll finish in an irrelevant sort of 14th, 15th, 16th, something like that. Premiership window, and I don't think they have the facilities, the coach, the young players to stay up there. I think Cosy Pickett will probably leave by then. They still have good young players, but I just feel like once the premiership window is done, they'll be done. North Melbourne, all depends if Clarkson stays. I'm going to assume for North Melbourne that Alistair Clarkson comes back to coaching and he coaches that team for the next foreseeable future, which I am going to say will be more than 5 years. And for that, I'm putting North Melbourne in top 4. And this leaves me with my final top 4. But there are plenty more teams to go. But North Melbourne, LDU, great young talent, way more young talent to come. It's all Clarkson. If Clarko's there, they'll be top 4. If Clarko's not there, put them in the wooden spoon lick is. I'm serious, but top 4 of Clarko's there. Port Adelaide, I think Port Adelaide are going to be creeping into the finals in 5 years. Rosie, Butters will be great, but I just feel like they do have a reliance on some mid to older players at the moment. And because they have been in a premiership window for the last 3-4 years, since 2020, they aren't prioritising youth as much. And I think, look, as a recording, round 14, they're top of the ladder. So this next year, 2, maybe in 3 years, maybe 4, they're going to be fighting for that premiership. So they might sacrifice some young talent for some experienced players to push for a flag. But I do see them staying up there in 5 years with the likes of Butters, Rosie and stuff. Richmond, I think Richmond will just miss out on the 8 in 5 years' time. I think we're a well-run club. We have great higher-ups, a bit like Collingwood. But the difference between Richmond and Collingwood is Richmond's young talent just isn't as good. We don't really have many outstanding stars. Yeah, I'm just not really convinced on Richmond, their young players that is. Just miss out on the finals, hopefully not night. Otherwise, Richmond fans will be abused for a while. St Kilda, I think St Kilda will always be in this category. They're just going to miss out on the 8. I will put them in a relevant finish actually because the young talent isn't great. And I think Ross Lyon will leave in the next couple of years. He's a bit like Antonio Conte. I've said that reference before. I'm putting Saints in just irrelevant. Sydney, I'm putting Sydney into creeping into the finals, which means we have our final top 8. Sydney have great talent, good young talent. They're always going to be up there for me. They might do a mini reset, which is sort of looking like what they're doing at the moment, but with a mini reset comes relative success for Sydney, and I think they're going to make the finals in 5 years' time. Which leaves me with the Eagles and the Bulldogs. We have 18, 17, 16 sorted for me, which means we should put maybe 2 and just miss out in the 8. I think the Eagles will just miss out in the 8 in 5 years' time. The reason I haven't put them in the 8 is they're going through a full rebuild, which doesn't guarantee any success out of it. I think they're starting to find some young gems, but generally speaking, their young players aren't that good. And the Dogs, I'll put the Dogs in a relevant finish. Kind of like Melbourne, they have some young talent, but I think they do have a lot of aging, middle-aged stars, which in 5 years won't be at the pace. I've done this with absolutely no prior research. I've literally clicked record and I've just gone off the top of my head. So I'm sure if I sat down for 15 minutes and looked at every list, you know, the young players, the core players, I might have a different list, but you know what? This is what I've gone for. It'll be weird to see Geelong fighting against the wooden spoon, and it'll be weird to see North Melbourne up towards the top. But you know what? This is my top 4. Let me know if you agree. Make sure, as per usual, you follow the TikTok FTFooty. Make sure you like, subscribe. As I said, comment what your top 8 will be in the next 5 years. So in 5 years' time, 2028, what will your top 8 be? Thanks for watching.